You might have thought the writing phase was tough, but the editing phase is where the hard work really happens. This is where we really drill down into the detail and get into the inner workings of the songs, reworking and refining each until it's the best it can be. First of all, you'll need to choose which 6 to 8 songs from the writing phase you want to take forward into the editing phase. Whether you make this decision at the end of the writing phase or at the end of the rest phase is up to you. What's really important is deciding how to focus your decision based on what you want to accomplish through your song circle. For example, if the main aim of your song circle is to develop individual writers, you'll probably want to choose each writer's best song. If, on the other hand, your goal is to have usable songs for your community, you might just want to select the handful of songs that have the most potential overall. This would obviously mean that some writers may not have any of their own songs going into the editing phase, which is tough and requires us to be really secure in our identity. If this is the course you want to pursue, it would also be important to set really clear expectations around this at the very beginning. In terms of the practicalities of making the decision, we've tried a couple of different approaches. We've used a closed, ranked voting system where everyone sent me their top 8 of everyone else's songs, no voting for your own. Then I collated the votes and we had a big reveal at the beginning of the editing phase. That was a lot of fun. There was the excitement and suspense of waiting to hear the results and a real sense of celebrating the songs that we were taking forward. The downside was that because on that occasion we were focusing on selecting the songs we felt were most likely to be usable in our community, some writers didn't have a song taken through to the editing phase. And even when expectations have been clearly set, that's really hard. The other main approach we've used is simply having a conversation together about which songs we'll continue working on. Everyone is asked to come with their thoughts on which songs should go forward, and we just dive in and see where the discussion leads us. We used this approach when we were focusing more on developing each writer and wanting to choose one song per writer to continue working on. It was really interesting hearing everyone's thoughts more fully, in a way you can't when you're just voting. Plus, there's room for a bit of persuasive back and forth. We found that for some writers, there was a super clear consensus amongst the group on which song should be put through to the editing process, whilst for others, it was much less conclusive. Both approaches are viable and have their pros and cons, and I'm sure there are other ways of handling the decision-making too. In choosing how to tackle it, you might want to weigh up various factors like the overall purpose of your song circle, the kind of personality or feel your group has as a whole, and the stage your writers are at in their journey. Okay, so let's look at the editing itself. The beginning of the editing phase is a good point at which to remind the song circle that things are about to get much more collaborative. Other members of the group will get to make significant contributions to each song. They become our songs rather than my song. And we encounter a crucial pivot point where we transition from writing the song for ourselves to writing it for others. So whether a song that initiated with you makes it through to the editing phase or not, there's going to be a degree of letting go involved. And that's all part of our journey of discipleship as a writer. Practically speaking, how you go about the editing is very flexible. You could divide your song circle into 2 smaller groups and assign each group 3 to 4 songs to work on together. Or you could put the onus on the main writer of the song to organise the editing of their own song, leaving it up to them to invite others in to collaborate and co-write with them. Either way, the editing groups arrange all their own meetups. Just make sure everyone is clear on the deadline for having the new versions ready by. Yep, those deadlines are crucial at every stage of the songwriting process. If you decide to break your song circle down into a couple of smaller groups for editing, it might be worth considering the different strengths and weaknesses of each writer and trying to spread them evenly across the 2 groups. So who are the strong lyricists and who has melodies pouring out of them? Whose strength is in chording and arrangement or form and structure? Which writers are song starters and which are song finishers? Have you got any great all-rounders? Thinking about where a song is at and what it needs might also help you or the main writer to figure out who to invite into co-writing it. And that is one of the most important things about this phase. We enter the co-writing zone, meaning that everyone in the group gets stuck into making specific hands-on suggestions on how to make each song the best it can be. Technically, a co-write is when another writer contributes to the top line of your song. The top line refers to the lyrics and the melody. Contributions to chording, arrangement, instrumental riffs, tempo, and the like do not qualify as co-writing, other than in exceptional circumstances where, say, an instrumental hook is considered central to the song's success. For the sake of clarity, when it comes to figuring out song splits, it's a good idea to keep track of top-line contributions for each song. And as the song circle leader, you can facilitate early discussions around this aspect of co-writing. Even if you don't think your song circle is quite at the publishing stage, or you're convinced that you get on far too well for this to be an issue, it's still really good practice to talk about this side of songwriting, and it will prepare you and your writers for when it does become a live issue for any reason. My priority in this for our songwriting community in Belfast is that we cultivate an attitude of generosity. There will always be more songs to collaborate on. Sometimes we'll contribute more and sometimes less. So I want us to remember that making much of Jesus and serving our community are our primary interests. There's plenty of good advice out there on collaboration and co-writing, so I won't duplicate it here, other than to say that one of the keys is to keep it a no-free zone. Negativity stifles creativity, so finding positive ways to express our thoughts is really important. Try saying, let's keep looking for ideas, which keeps things moving, rather than, nah, I don't like that, which shuts things down. Not every suggestion will be taken up, but ideas can spark each other. One can be a stepping stone to another, and sometimes it takes several bad ideas to recognize a really good one. Experiment with every suggestion, bounce ideas off each other, and see where it takes you. For me personally, much of the past couple of years of my songwriting journey has been about the value of editing and re-editing a song, and re-editing it until it's finished. I'm still discovering what it means to edit a song and how to navigate the very different terrain that process can take you through, from deconstruction and what feels like demolition, to homing in on the pulsing heart of the song, to listening for what the Holy Spirit is resting on, to harnessing the technical craft of songwriting in such a way that the song is freed to accomplish its purpose most fully. There are times when experimenting with alternative melodies and lyrics leaves me in a fog of confusion, sinking moments when I realize that solving one problem line means rewriting the entire section, breakthroughs that wake me up at 5 a.m. And then there are all the questions and tensions. When should I fight for what I hold dear, and when do I bow to the overriding wisdom or preference of my co-writers? What does it mean to not settle? When do I simply have to wait in this part of the process? And what about those times when you feel like you have edited the life out of a song, when you feel like all the violence of the editing process has separated you from it? Is there a way back, a way of finding it again and letting its cry rise from you again? Editing a song is definitely a journey. Each song's editing journey is different, and there's something important about honouring that. It might mean that some songs only need a few drafts while others need a lot more. It might even mean that some songs need to be allowed to rest and wait. But there's plenty of flexibility in the song circle format for navigating all that, whether you set one final end deadline for the editing or structure your editing phase to allow for multiple rounds. Whatever it looks like practically, it can be helpful to remember that the first drafts of all our songs are often closer to a seed than a plant. And as we know, seed has a lot of falling, dying, and growing to do before it eventually bears fruit. So persevere through the editing. It will develop stamina and maturity in you as writers. Hold out hope for each song and what it can become. And make sure you regroup at the end of the editing phase to hear the new versions of each song. It is so good to get back together again as a whole song circle. The buzz around hearing the progress each song has made, the stories and reflections on what the process was like for each writer. Honestly, nothing beats writing in community.